HAR.com was already a valuable tool, but once we were able to establish a relationship with our realtor, we had access to premium features that allowed us to feel much more educated. He brought tremendous experience, deep knowledge. I don't think we could have gotten through it without him.
Good morning, Texas Realtors. What an incredible morning it is. You guys are bringing the energy, the passion, and the commitment.
You are the strongest grassroots advocacy force in the state of Texas. You are the voice for Texas real estate. And when we stand together, we make a big impact.
We were able to sit down and talk about the issues that we are prioritizing this legislation, some of them being housing affordability, private property tax, transparency, and water infrastructure. We were able to discuss issues that they were concerned about as well.
We are here today at the Capitol for Realtor Day at the Capitol. We show up, we have meetings all day with Texas legislators, and we really have great conversations about the issues and the legislative topics that are important to us for home ownership, for property owners' rights, and this is the day where the rubber meets the road for realtors.
I invest in TreePack because it's the right thing to do. I invest in my clients, I invest in our industry, and if I didn't, it would be sticking my head in the sand and waiting for someone else to do what I need to do. If we're not at the table with the politicians, we're on the menu.
What I really like about this global dinners that we donate to TreePack is that we have a chance to learn about other cultures, which used to be in such a diverse market with all these other cultures. Why not know more about the people that we serve, helping you find homes, that they're getting together, having a meal together, and learning about it. So I'm really excited that these global dinners come, giving us the experience to know where other people come from to better serve them, and at the same time, donating to a great cause in TreePack.
Being a first-time home buyer, I wanted to make sure that I was able to get into a home that would not stress me out. Through HAR.com, my realtor found me some down payment assistance, and that made it a lot more affordable to purchase a home.
Good morning and welcome to Member Focus Monday. I'm Christina Schaefer, Director of Social Media and Sponsorships for HAR, and we are back after a couple weeks summer hiatus. Member Focus Monday, we are here and we are tackling some really important topics today with HAR Legal Counsel Grant Harpold. Welcome back to the program, Grant.
Hey, Christina, great to be here. It's a wonderful, beautiful Monday morning, July in Houston, Texas, huh?
Absolutely. Nice and cool outside too, right?
Right.
Well, Grant, I've lost track of how many times you've come on the show, but every time you come on, we get so many questions from our live viewers. Of course, I have a bunch of questions for you as well, because there's always so many things going on in the industry. But before we dive into all the questions that I have for you, and I'm sure our live viewers have for you today, tell us a little bit about yourself, Grant, for those who haven't met you yet, who you are and what you do.
Well, I've been practicing law for 35 plus years, legal counsel to HAR for the last 13, 14, 15 years, and board certified in civil trial law. A lot of that civil trial law was defending and representing brokers. I probably handled hundreds, if not thousands, of claims for brokers and real estate agents over the past 30 years. And so whether it be a jury trial or an arbitration or a mediation or a pure settlement or dismissal. I've handled all aspects of claims and issues for brokers, so I feel quite comfortable in discussing what we're doing here today, and hopefully it will be beneficiary to everybody who's watching or listening.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for taking time for this today. And let's jump right into it. And because I know there's quite a few here, but what are some of the most common legal risks that you're seeing facing realtors right now?
Well, I think, and I'm going to speak to these as realtors as a group, because whatever affects realtors as a group ultimately will affect you individually as a realtor. So it's there's no them or us. It's all, you're all together as far as how these issues affect the industry and you personally, or you in your own business. And starting out, I sort of made a list of things that are sort of going on today and will be here tomorrow. When they're not going to leave us today, they'll be here tomorrow. And one of them is antitrust. I mean, the antitrust issues in our industry are not going away. I mean, we had the NAR settlement on the offer of compensation, but there's still other antitrust issues that will affect the industry, will affect realtors, and will affect you. And specifically, the clear cooperation policy is still being kicked around, whether it be the lawsuit between Compass and Zillow, or the more recent thing was the PLS lawsuit in San Francisco, where a private service, a private MLS, if you will, is saying that the clear cooperation policy is antitrust. It violates the antitrust. It's anti-competitive. And the court's going to hear that case, and because the court has said in the past on the clear cooperation policy that there is a possibility that it could be anti-competitive. So getting through that case is going to be interesting, and that case could affect the whole industry. So that's still sitting out there. And then we also still have the offer of compensation that was in the MLS that we know is no longer in the MLS, but in some of our listing agreements, specifically in Texas, the offer of compensation agreement is still there. So what was once in the MLS is no longer, but it's still in the listing agreement. So that could be an issue, antitrust, if you look at the DOJ opinion in other cases, and if you look at what California Association of Realtors has done with their listing agreement. So point is, antitrust is not going away. There's multiple fires that are burning right now. We'll see whether they get put out or they become bonfires. And then also there's a specific cryptocurrency alert, and I'm going to read to you something. This came from the FBI directly to NAR. I'm going to read to you what they said, and some of you may know this, some of you may not, but I'm going to look down and read this. The U.S. Secret Service, and this was given to the NAR by the U.S. Secret Service just recently. The U.S. Secret Service has informed NAR about a new cryptocurrency scam targeting real estate professionals, specifically buyer agents. So what happens is the cryptocurrency fraud, if you will, is that some big high-flying buyer that you are representing gets you, goes around, looks at high-dollar properties and gets you to, or starts talking about what he does she does for a living, cryptocurrency investor, gets you as the agent or as part of this relationship, gets you to invest in a deal. You make some quick money, you think, hey, this is pretty good. And then you go, what they say, and I'm going to read from it. What they set up what they call a pig butchering. And this is NAR's alert from the government. And it's sort of a get you all into the deal, kind of fatten you up into a bigger deal and cause you to invest a lot of money, and it turns out to be a scam. And so this is something that's going on apparently across the country between buyers agents and these quote crypto investors who are out to make you money, but ultimately are going to steal your money. So be leery of those as a buyer's agent when that discussion may come up. Defraud is still going on, and where somebody says, hey, I got this property, and typically it's a vacant lot or a vacant piece of property, but you never meet the person, and the person wants to, hire you and not meet with you, but wants to cash offer, all these fast-moving terms that should raise red flags. And so what do? You need to confirm that the property, whose property it is and who these people are, and perhaps meet them in some safe manner. But that is still ongoing. Artificial intelligence, AI, there are risks there, meaning that you could have your AI data that you're using could be infringing upon somebody else's information, meaning that the AI model took it from some other source that is now using, and now you're using it, could be infringing. Now, we've heard this as a possible legal issue. I've yet to see a lawsuit on that, but it keeps coming up as a way somebody might get in trouble using AI information. Also, fair housing, if you're using if you're using AI to help tailor your advertising to the exclusion of some class of people or to targeting some class of people, that could be a fair housing violation. Then also AI unchecked, and what I mean by that is that if you're using artificial intelligence like to maybe do a property description, you need to confirm what's in there. You just can't rely upon them to get AI to get it right. I mean, I would equate it to maybe years ago, way before my time, when the calculator was invented. I would imagine back then if somebody got out their pencil and their big cheap pad and said, okay, the calculator came up with this number, I'm going to do it on a piece of paper just to make sure. And so there was this balance for a while between knowing that AI or knowing that the calculator was accurate on its calculations and you making sure. And so I think we're still in that mode right now, is that you need to make sure what AI is doing for you is accurate. And so TCPA and DNC, you can't, Telephone Consumer Protection Act, you can't auto dial or auto send out text messages and phone calls without written consent from that person who owns that phone number, that mobile number. So that's still an ongoing issue. I see those lawsuits still getting filed. Multiple listing options for seller. That's kind of ties back into clear cooperation, office exclusive, and delayed marketing, private for sellers, what we have here at HAR. And so that's still an ongoing issue on how that plays out. Ultimately, you will need some sort of separate disclosure form signed by the seller if they choose office exclusive or private for seller. And we'll have an updated form on that. And then lastly, I'm blowing through this as fast as I can, but I'm happy to stop and dwell on any of them or go back. By agreement, that what was the NAR settlement has been codified into a statute that will become effective in January 1, 2026. And effectively, you need to have some sort of agreement in place with a person you're working with before you tour a property. It can be a representation agreement or it can be a non-representation agreement. If it's a non-representation agreement and you continue to work with that person after you show them the property, then you have to move into a representation agreement. Or the other solution is, from the very get-go, have a full representation agreement in place to start with. Either way, you need to have something in place. If you don't show them the property, you need to have something in place, agreement-wise, representation-wise, before you make an offer on the property. And so that there's some little hurdles within the non-representation aspect of this that you can and cannot do if you're going to be just a non-representation agent, if you will. So there's some hurdles within the statute that require you not to do certain things that would look like you're representing them, and you're really not. You just you're doing this quote non-representation agreement, and you got to stick to that. But anyway. That I'm sure TR will come out with some FAQs and a form on the non-representation, and those issues will be dealt with as we get closer to January. So there it is in a fast-moving train. Some of the issues facing us today and tomorrow.
I mean, those are a lot of risks that people need to be aware of and kind of keep their eyes on. We did have a couple comments that came in that I wanted to just share with you. No questions so far, but if you have questions for Grant, please type those in. Fauzia said, I got scammed in cryptocurrency with a chain account. They lost $274,000. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Sorry I wasn't sooner this morning. But it's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, sorry to hear that.
And just a comment here also from Alwyn in regard to the AI property description. You were talking about the AI descriptions for listings and things like that. She pointed out, as a reminder, many AI descriptions include the furniture. So they might be including items that are not part of the terms of the sale. So again, all the more reason, like you said, to kind of double check those before you just utilize them.
I use AI. I use it almost every day. I'm not against AI, but understand your role in relation to AI's role. It's a mutual role. You still have participation in making sure it's accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for those, Grant. I want to get into a question that I know is a popular one. It was almost the basis of me calling you up and saying, hey, Grant, when are you available to come on the show? Because there's a question that pops up, and I see it almost weekly, and it's regarding buyer feedback after showings. So lots of questions around this. So does sharing feedback with listing agents open agents or their clients up to legal risk?
Well, as we all know, in any of these transactions, there's legal risk, right or wrong. And so there's always, no matter what you do, whether you do everything right or make a slight mistake, whatever, there's always a legal risk. We know that. Specifically on comments and reporting back, I have the feedback. I have yet to see in all the years a lawsuit arise out of this. I could understand where one might arise, but I have not seen that. And so does that mean we just don't pay attention to it? I think we should. I mean, there are legitimate questions on how we should handle feedback, and I think I think number one, be a professional. Remember you're a professional, and so in providing this feedback, you have to be calculated and sensitive to the other side of the transaction. Look, everybody knows. I just went through a sale of a house or a property. It can be, it can be emotional. I mean, let's face it. So don't stir the emotion or rip off the Band-Aid that may have been on some emotions on the seller side or even on the buy side. But here we're talking about feeding back to the seller side. And so, be sensitive to what you might say that might offend the other side. I think that's fair to say. You might, or you probably should, if you're going to provide detailed comments to the listing side, you might get your consent from your own client. Remember, you have a client as the buyer's agent and a fiduciary, so you may, there should be a discussion about what you might tell the listing agent if it's more than some general, basic, harmless comment. And so again, remember your role, remember you're a professional, talk to your client, make sure they understand what you may or may not say back to the listing agent if it's something detailed or personal that you're providing. And at the end of the day, don't burn any bridges with the seller side. I mean, don't trash the property, don't blow it up, and don't do something that might burn the bridge with the listing side after your buyer says, I don't like the property. Then 4 houses later they say, well, you know what, now that first house is actually looking pretty good, maybe we should go back and try to buy it. And meanwhile, you just blew it up, with your comments when the listing agent asked you about it. So there you have it.
Well, and I really appreciate you taking the time to tell us that, Grant, because again, this is something that comes up, I would say almost weekly at this point. And I think most of it was derived from TikTok. And, we've got professionals on there, yes, but we also have people who maybe are just looking for views, and so spreading misinformation and things like that. So and it can be scary because, of course, as a buyer's agent, you don't want to put yourself at risk. You don't want to put your client at risk. But as a listing agent, we know you want feedback, right? So it puts you in a tough spot.
It does. I mean, there is no duty to provide anything. Okay, there may be professional courtesy, but there is no duty. And then number two, whatever you do provide, remember you have a client. And so your first duty is to what your buyer wants to do or not do, not what the listing agent wants to hear from you. Sorry.
Yeah. So, and it's a good point that you said it's a professional courtesy. It's not a duty. We have some opinions in the comments saying it should be mandatory. We have others saying I always ask my buyer for feedback and then provide it. But then you also have people like Cassandra that's saying getting feedback for listings is like pulling teeth. So, I feel like our members are all over the spectrum on this one.
Well, it's funny. I had feedback at my house. We had a Jack and Jill bathroom upstairs, and somebody who did not buy it wanted separate bathrooms for their kids. And, okay, sorry, I can't provide that, but, it was interesting to say the least, but it wasn't. It didn't cause any harm either way. So anyway, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. A comment here from Diane Moore. She said, providing feedback agent to agent always makes sense, but I agree that you have to be careful with client feedback so that you don't harm their negotiating power or convey confidential information. So
that's well said. I like to hear that. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that answer, Grant. And again, if there are any other questions for Grant, type those into the comments and we will get to those. So Grant, let's talk about the current market. How has the current market affected any legal complaints or contract disputes?
You know, I can remember days when the market was bad and lawsuits were flying out the window daily. I mean, just everywhere. I still think our market here, in those sort of a little bit of a buyer's market, I still think our market here is still good. And so when things are somewhat good or relatively good, you know, claims and lawsuits typically don't spike up. And so I think the same rules apply. I think, you know, like I said, when the economy's in the tank and you're upside down in a property, then the claims seem to come out of nowhere. I don't think we're in that mode. I think we're in just a normal, you know, business setting relative to real estate.
Okay, very good. So let's talk about contract mistakes. What contract mistakes do you see most often, and how can agents avoid those?
Well, I think the biggest issue I see is taking time to review it, and whether it be the contract, the seller disclosure notice, anything, any sort of form, if you will, that was required or needed to be filled out. You know, I still see incomplete contracts, sometimes incomplete seller disclosure notices, sometimes seller disclosure notices that probably, you know, were not completed in full, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's, you know, that's something you need to be sensitive to, and that's your duty. I see two duties here. You as a listing agent need to make sure, of course, things are filled out on the list side completely or in the contract, and you as a buyer's agent, same duty applies. I mean, you should, if you see something that's not completed or doesn't make sense, maybe conflicting, maybe there's a conflicting answer in the disclosure statement, mistakenly or intentionally, who knows, but you need to raise that issue with the other side. So I think knowing the documents, knowing their content, and knowing what they say is important, because you don't want to be saying things about the document that are not there. You may have thought that provision was there, you may have thought it said this, but that's another issue that comes up, is that some realtors will express certain things about the property that are do not line up with what the contract says, or what the seller disclosure says, or what the inspection report says. So that's something you have to be sensitive to. Know what the documents say, know what the documents need to say, and be sure to follow them, or if they're incomplete or inaccurate, raise the issue.
Mm-hmm. What are some things that realtors should be careful of when handling multiple offers?
Well, I think ultimately in that situation, you have to work with your seller and understand how this is going to be, how we're going to handle the multiple offers. And so you may have a strategy, you may have a plan, you may have the best experience on how to do it, but I would just make sure your seller, your client, once again, is plugged into how we're going to handle this and how we're going to be transparent, what information we're going to provide to the other side. You know, and you as the listing agent need to be timely in presenting these offers to your client. So I think I think the listing agent, you know, has probably a good track record or experience in dealing with this, but need to bring the seller in and make sure they understand what you're doing and how you plan to handle this, so they're on board with it. And so that, you know, I think holding an auction is still not the way to handle these things. You can certainly have multiple offers, but not in an auction type environment. And then lastly, believe it or not, you may say, well, that's stating the obvious, but okay, I'll state the obvious. Only counter one offer at a time. You can't have multiple counters to multiple offers. And one counter offer at a time to one contract. And so because you don't want to have two people accepting two different counters that are out there pending. I mean, that seems like I said, stating the obvious, but it does happen. So so anyway, that's my view on that.
Great, thank you. I mean, we've seen such a rise of teams over the last few years. Are there any rising legal concerns tied to teams or brokerage supervision?
I don't know that the teams have any more exposure or legal risk than just a regular non-team, if you will, transaction. I think the issue that from a broker supervision or even from a team format is independent contractor status and making sure if everybody's an independent contractor, then they need to be treated as an independent contractor. If they're employees, and they're treated as employees. So the issue there is if you're so controlling of an independent contractor within a team that they really are acting as an employee, then if something goes wrong or if there's some sort of disagreement or some sort of issue that arises, you may be subject to a suit for employee withholding and other issues related to what should have been provided this person as an employee versus as an independent contractor. So I think, and that's not so much anything new, but that is still an ongoing issue. I mean, in the independent contractor status, that law still exists, but also so does the ability for somebody to argue that I never really was an independent contractor because of my hours, my commitment, what I was told to do, blah, 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 the things that make me more of an employee than an independent contractor.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. There was I want to go back really quick to the multiple offer question that I asked. Margot followed up with a question. So you can't tell them all to come back with the highest and best?
No, you can. All of these, and even if you did an auction, that's not necessarily against the law or well, I settle on, and that I don't consider that to be an auction, but having everybody bring in their highest and best offer, I think that's appropriate. And I think that's, again, a strategy that you discuss with the seller, and that's what you act upon. So however you handle it, whatever you do, I think it's all within the realm of being transparent and making sure the seller's on board with what you're doing.
Very good.
And being timely about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a comment here from Rich, Mitch Rainey. He just, a reminder, he said, use the seller's invitation to submit new offer, Texas Realtors Form 1926. So great tip there. Great. You were going to say something else?
When I say be transparent, I mean, that doesn't mean you have to tell the buy side everything that you and your seller are discussing, but I think you need to be just transparent as to how we're handling this transaction with multiple offers. I think that's just fair to everyone. And that's the bottom line from an ethics standpoint, is be fair, be professional, be fair, understand your role, understand the seller's involvement in your role, and that's the bottom line, is fairness.
Okay, very good. Different topic here, but Andrea had a question. She said, curious your thoughts about sending a seller numerous inspection reports from a buyer when they terminated the contract immediately. There were several times on the report that they were inaccurate or not in effect when the home was built. The seller invested in several licensed professionals other than inspector.
So there are reports that may exist concerning the condition of the property that the seller has via either some source, a buyer or whoever. Mm-hmm. Well, again, that we go back to the age-old rule, disclose. I mean, if there's information you have, whether as a listing agent or as a seller or both, disclose it. People, believe it or not, and I know this to be true, more information, more knowledge the buyer has, the better they feel about buying a property, the more interested they are, or maybe it makes their decision clear as to what to do. But most buyers are gain confidence by having knowledge of the property, whether it be good or bad. Knowledge of the condition of the property is not a bad thing. Information about the condition of the property is a good thing. Providing that information from the list side or the seller side is fine. Don't be afraid to do that. Anything that you have that is relative to the condition of the property that the buyer does not have, disclose it. I mean, that's the bottom line, and the seller should understand that. And if the seller doesn't understand that, then you have an issue on that listing, and maybe they need to hire somebody else.
Very good. Again, going back to the multiple offer, because there were some comments kind of back and forth on this, and Bill Jones just made a comment. He said, I think there's confusion on what constitutes a counter offer. So can you kind of clear that up for us, Grant, so we're all on the same page? What constitutes a counter offer?
If somebody submits an offer, let's say for $100,000, and you counter with a offer for $105,000, I mean, it's just whether it could be this can be done by various ways, but however the counter is done, if you respond to an offer with a counter offer, meaning different terms, something different that the buyer now has to decide, am I accepting this offer? Are we going to reduce this offer to a formal contract? Whatever it might be, that's what I'm talking about. Something that gives the buyer the right or the ability to say, yes, I'm good with that. You don't want to have multiple counters and have multiple buyers, potential buyers, answering yes, we'll do that, because now you're going to possibly have a conflict between multiple buyers involving yourself.
Very good. Thank you so much, Grant. Let's switch gears here to social media. How can social media open realtors up to legal risk?
Yeah. We still have multiple things on that. So let me start with copyright. So if you're posting things, if you're pulling content from somebody else's, article or posting or something that is not yours, let's put it that way. You're posting it, and it's a verbatim posting, whether it be a photo or dialogue or content, anything that's not yours, is not created by you, that you're pulling out of context or pulling without any sort of link back to where it came from, then somebody could come after you for a copyright violation, meaning that you're using somebody else's data, a photo or images or anything that you did not create, you're getting from some other source, you're now posting it on social media. That could be a copyright infringement. But you can't do that. And so also, I think everybody is up to speed on this nowadays, but maybe not. I mean, there still are track rules on advertising through social media, and so you need to be conscious of that. That's still an issue. And so also you need to be conscious on social media of being critical or defamatory, if you will, of other agents, other properties. I mean, you can slander a property, slander another agent. You got to be careful about what you say about other people or other things on social media. And then, of course, lastly, you don't want to, start a collusion ring, if you will, saying, what are we going to do about this? What commissions are you charging on this? What about that other competitor? Just some sort of ganging up or collusion or some sort of antitrust, sort of anti-competitive type dialogue that sometimes people get close to violating on social media. So you have to be sensitive to that.
And I think it's, it's understandable in some ways. I know a lot of people go to social media and they want to express their opinions or they want to warn people about things they're seeing. But to your point, if we're targeting a particular company or something like that, that's what you're saying, that can get them into trouble, right?
Yeah, I mean, remember, again, be a professional. And so, and look, all of us, I mean, social media is just, if I was blowing off steam in my den talking to my cat, if nothing else, I mean, it's a place to release. I get that. I mean, okay, the cat's not going to get it. Social media is going to get it. And so, but always be sensitive to what you're saying. You are a professional. There are, people. If people know you're a realtor, I mean, you put on a good face, put on a good look. I mean, there's opportunities that people may be saying, hey, there's somebody I'd like to know and get to meet and maybe do business with. But if you come across as constantly critical or slanderous or disruptive, I mean, that's not a good look. That's not the look I don't think people would want to be as a realtor on social media.
There was a question regarding the copyright. Jennifer was asking, what if another agent lists a property you listed years ago and uses your pictures that you took without your knowledge? Is that copyright infringement?
If they're your pictures that you took, yes, it could be. And they didn't get consent from you to use them, yes.
It's also if they're using them in the MLS, it's an MLS violation as well.
No, it's an MLS. I mean, that right there is an MLS. Yeah, sort of step down a notch is an MLS violation. But from a more really legal liability standpoint, yes, it could be a copyright infringement. I mean that. Let me just say this: the photo. Using photos that are not yours or not getting all the rights to the photos that should be yours on a property that you have the listing on, that's critical in what you're doing. A, obtaining those rights from the photographer, or B, having some sort of right to use that photo, because I see every day almost, because I watch lawsuits that are filed here within Harris County and federal courts, which cover more than Harris County, and the photo copyright infringement lawsuit gets filed every day against somebody. That's a real life threat. And I probably should have mentioned it in my legal risk, but maybe it's too obvious to me. But so let me make it more obvious for y'all that the photo infringement lawsuit is an everyday thing. Those that get filed all the time, and it's because people feel like they can just grab a photo off the internet or from somewhere and use it to their advantage without compensating the person who took it, and that's the issue. And so, the MLS, any photo you submit to the MLS should have every right of you and the MLS to use that photo in all ways that it deems necessary. And so that's a critical aspect, is to have those rights to that photo. And when you submit, especially when the photos are submitted to the MLS, those same rights need to travel with the photo to the MLS for its use as it sees fit.
Very good. Thank you so much, Grant, and thank you, Jennifer, for that really good question there. You've mentioned a lot of topics today, a lot of things that we need to be aware of if we're trying to protect ourselves and our business. What are a few best practices that you'd recommend for realtors to reduce their legal exposure in their day-to-day business?
I think it's kind of been the underlying theme here is remember your role, okay? Look, in a transaction, you can either be one or two things, representing the buyer or representing the seller. And so if whatever side you're on, you have a duty to perform. So what does that mean? Is that a new duty? No, that's not a new duty. That's part of your fiduciary duty. And so I equate fiduciary duty with perform. Be something. You just can't sit there and sit back and let it happen. You have obligations to perform. You have services to provide. You have duties to do on behalf of your buyer. In fact, as a buyer's agent, you're sort of on the offensive. I mean, you're trying to do everything you can to make sure the buyer is getting into a property that it wants, and that it is hassle-free and fair and price-wise and has no issues from a defect standpoint. And same view on the seller, listing side, is that you have services to do. You need to make sure that this property is being sold in a fair manner, in a full disclosure manner, and that everybody understands what's going on, and that the playing field is level as with respect to knowledge of the property that is being sold, and that knowledge gets transferred to the buyer. And so perform. You're a fiduciary. That's a highest duty in law, and it requires you to act and you to perform and you to provide services. I mean, that's understand your role. Each transaction is different. Each transaction may need to do some more of this or some more of that, or maybe not on the everything's different, and so you need to adjust accordingly and perform.
Very good. And be a professional, as you said several times today. Grant, sometimes in the HAR MLS Platinum Subscribers Facebook group, people will ask a question and immediately several people will tell them this is a question for your broker. So where is that line, Grant, for asking, colleagues or asking kind of the masses for advice versus something that should go to my broker versus something that maybe I need to contact an attorney for?
I think when you start guessing, okay, when you're not acting on personal experience or personal knowledge and you're guessing to an answer, you're taking steps to guess, if you will, then that's when you need to go upstairs and check in with the with your broker or legal or somebody. I think that's sort of the first red flag. If you're in that uncertainty zone, I think the other thing, if you step outside your box, as far as you're there to provide brokerage services, and so that is facilitating the sale of the property. And so if you get outside what your role is as in providing brokerage services, then that also, maybe that's beyond even speaking to the broker. You need to speak to legal, and then also, I mean, you can feel it. You have a conscience. Turn on your conscience button in your head. But if you're starting to do unfamiliar tasks, if those are sort of falling onto your lap from the seller or from the buyer, then it's time to get help. It's okay to ask your broker for help or to ask legal for help. I mean, that's not a reflection on you as somebody that's inadequate for the job. That's somebody that's being smart and being confident and again, doing all of this is in the context of your fiduciary. So that would be another fiduciary duty that you're completing correctly by going to get help, because you don't want to spoil that duty by saying or doing something that is not correct or not right, or should have been perhaps addressed by your broker, or should have been perhaps addressed by legal advice. So it's okay to step out and ask and make sure you're doing it the right way. You should always ask. Don't be afraid to ask and seek help, and because all of this is still in this context of being a professional and knowing your role in the transaction.
Very good. Thank you so much, Grant. Well, I know that people reach out to you all the time with questions. You watch what's going on in the industry. You see mistakes being made. What's one piece of legal advice that you wish every realtor would follow?
I sound like a broken record on this, but what I see, whether on the buyer side or the seller side, is know your role and perform that service. And so, if you're on the buy side, you're representing the buyer. There are things that need to be done for the buyer's sake. That like I said, it's transaction to transaction. So I guess what I'm saying is, my advice to you is remember that you represent, whether it's representing the buyer or the seller, whatever the side you're on, is that you have duties to fulfill those duties. Represent your client, perform. It's sort of the running thing we've been having here today, but it's the advice is to remember your role in the transaction and go perform it.
Very good. Well, Grant, we've gone over time with you, but there's still so many questions in here. I want to get one more question that came in, because it was kind of a follow-up to the photo question. And since you said that's such a hot topic and an important one, Yvette kind of had a follow-up here. Who has to give the authority to use the pictures? Is it the seller, the realtor, or the photographer?
The photographer. So you hire a photographer to take photos of the property, presumably, and then you need to have in that agreement those rights transferred to you and ultimately to the MLS that allow that photo to be used unlimited by you, or more importantly by the MLS. Very good.
Thank you, Grant, for that.
Yeah, and this is not anything new. I'm not breaking new ground here. This has been that way for years, and so to the extent that maybe you forgot or just need a refresher or like I said, always ask. Please always ask. That's a good question.
Yeah.
And that's, those rights need to be transferred ultimately to the MLS for use of that photo, unlimited.
Very good. Another question I have for you, just where can members go? I mean, you said talk to your broker, talk to, a lawyer. Where can members go if they have questions or they need legal support and maybe they don't have, legal counsel at their brokerage or something like that?
Well, your Texas Realtors, they have a hotline you can call and get answers. And I think you can go on the TREC and submit, if not by phone, but by email, submit questions, even though those may be more regulatory questions than, quote, legal issues. But anyway, you have the Texas Realtor hotline, you have possible TREC submissive by email, but you also, on both websites, TREC and TR, you got FAQs. And so the FAQs, even I go look at FAQs. I mean, so I think the FAQs are perhaps the starting point. If you don't get your answer in the FAQs, then you can call for sure the legal hotline at Texas Realtor. I'm in the world. I'm out in the world too. I mean, I sometimes don't have a legal hotline, but I'm out there also. So.
Yeah.
So people do reach out to me in some manner, depending on the situation. So yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if you weren't aware of Texas Realtors Legal Hotline, I'm sure we can put that phone number in the chat. And of course, Diane Moore said, I love the FAQs. Yeah, go check those out on Texas Realtors website. That can be very helpful to you. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe TR prides themselves, their legal hotline, that they will get your question answered within 24 hours on a typical basis. So they're very good and are there to support you. So don't be afraid to ask questions, as Grant said, and reach out. Well, Grant, there's probably about 20 unanswered questions right now, and we're already over time. So what I'm going to do for those that tuned in and asked the live questions, we will get all of those questions. We'll jot them all down. We'll send them to Grant. We'll get you your answers, and then we will pop those answers up in the comments either later today or later this week, so everybody can get their questions answered. Because Grant, I think this is a testament to you. Just need to keep coming on the show more often. They have so many questions for you.
Hey, I'm happy to come on anytime and stay all night, stay low longer if need to.
Very good. Well, also, if you want to hear more from Grant, HAR has an event taking place next week, July 22nd, which we can put a link to in the comments. It is a Management Central event, so the audience is brokers and managers. Typically, if you fall into that category, click that link, sign up. There are still seats available for the event, and Grant is going to be one of our featured speakers that day. So I know I'm looking forward to hearing from you that day, Grant.
Well, I'm looking forward to it also, and it's like I said, I enjoy these issues and discussing them, and I think it's healthy for everyone, for me, for the audience to have a dialogue and to and to always be on the learning curve. You never can know too much. I try to learn as much as I can each and every day, because I don't know everything, and I'm happy and humbly okay with that. And so I'm always searching for better and more information, and I think our audience is too. And so that's a testament to you as members to stay involved and to watch, listen, and learn, and know your role and perform and have fun.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Grant. We really appreciate your time today. That's it for this Member Focus Monday, but do be sure to tune in next Monday at 9 a.m. We are going to have Sally Snook back on the show. She's HAR's Technology Marketing Manager, and she's going to be talking about the most important tools for listing agents. So be sure to tune in next Monday at 9 a.m. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you, Grant.
Bye-bye.